I will be posting, and the live stream will be available for everyone that you guys want to watch later. And perfect. Okay. Okay. Yes, Delegate, you may begin.
How would immigration work? Would the amount of visas be different? Will any aid given to Afghanistan be divided even if past donations were given through the democratic government or the Taliban? These are things that are not cleared within the clause. Further, regarding the country had not put much thought into the intensity of proposing a new state, and it will probably collapse, ruining the lives of the innocent people of Afghanistan. Additionally, the death of Hibatullah Akhundzada put a toll on leadership, and he can't rule for Jahanan. The delegate yields the floor to the chairs.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
It would like to yield the floor to the delegates of Syria.
Yes, Delegate, that is an order. Yes, Delegate, that is an order. Wait, I just have.
All delegations 13 of POI, please raise your placards up now.
Solve any of the problems that is being solved this crisis.
Delegate wholeheartedly agree. Moments in try to represent done in far more specified and organized measure. If we conduct this measurement by the country in the midst of a crisis, it will not help the country at all. It will not help the people of Africa fighting here.
Perfect. Thank you, Delegate. Delegation of Russia, you have been recognized.
Various attempts to solve this issue and very opposing views
that the clause 1 is, and still you've mentioned the delegation of has mentioned in your that it lacks specificity. Would the delegate be open to amending the clause instead of striking it, as it is a fundamental clause to the functioning of our resolution and to address the topic of the forum at hand?
Fortunately, no. The delegation recognized how striking clause 1 would make the resolution quite vague, not effective. However, clause 1 itself doesn't add any effectiveness. Finding does not allow for for an issue at hand to be solved. The floor back to
Thank you, Delegate. We have reviewed the motion to cite source by, if I'm not wrong, delegation of the UK about the drone, and yes, it is valid. It is actually a Reuters source. It's a very valid news vehicle, so we do agree. If I'm not wrong, the motion said 200, 300, 700, and could go even up to 1,000 kilometers. So yes, that motion. What? Delegates, no, no direct conversations. Delegates, just the chairs have reviewed and this is accepted, okay? Hope you understand. Yes, delegate? Guys, we will be have to passing the microphones around, so it will take a little while to answer questions and everything.
This partition cannot be completely compared to the partition of India back in the day, since back in the day, Britain did not have in consideration demographic, social, age groups, or ethnic backgrounds to do such partitions, while in this resolution, many things are taken in consideration.
Perfect, thank you, delegate. Just let's focus on the topic in hand and not talk about other topics. But thank you. We are now moving to voting procedure for this amendment. Are there any motions in the House? Oh yeah, sorry, delegate. Yeah, like don't raise and speak, just raise and then we'll choose. Yes, delegation of Iran. Okay, delegate, delegation of Afghanistan. Was it for the against? Okay. Delegates, all delegates that wish to speak against this amendment, please raise your placards high. Delegation of Afghanistan, you have been chosen. Please rise and give a 30-second speech about this, why not this amendment.
You may start, delegate.
Delegates, the delegation of Afghanistan urges the delegates in this committee to vote against this amendment. Doesn't the delegates who submitted this amendment understand that for this issue to be finally solved, the Taliban will need to be heard, maybe not pleasing all the citizens living in Afghanistan? Come on, delegates. The delegate is tired of saying about how Afghanistan is tired and wants to stop this right now.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to 20 points of information?
And you know,
Are there any such in the House?
when I the delegate allowed to yield the floor to the other delegate.
Yes, delegate, that is in order.
First, we'll be entertaining the POI by the delegation of Iran.
Does the delegation agree that this resolution should keep countries out of the Middle East and countries that shouldn't be in the Middle East, such as Russia and the United States, out of meddling within Afghanistan and be the only democratic way to solve this issue?
The delegation wholeheartedly agrees that it is very important for other countries which don't understand the internal affairs and religious traditions of the Afghanistan to not get involved in the internal issues of Afghanistan and to be kept left out. And this clause effectively affirms that.
I'll be entertaining the POI by the delegation of Saudi Arabia.
New nation takes decades to grow. Why would the delegate propose to do it to two different nations from bringing forth from an already war-torn country?
Well, obviously, a nation does take decades to grow, but there needs to be a starting point. It's much better to have growth in a nation than to keep Afghanistan as it is extremely unstable due to all that has been done to this country, even the assassination of one of its leaders. So it is essential for it to have a new starting point and a restart to everything that has happened to Afghanistan in the last 20 years.
Thank you, delegation. We are going to entertain the POI by the delegation of Brazil.
The delegate agreed that since the resolution states by separating Afghanistan in half, Afghans are given the choice to express their own beliefs on their own accord.
Absolutely. Afghanistan, although mainly a Muslim country, is a country with a vast variety of different religions. And as we have seen before, some of these religions might feel oppressed, and that is why the creation of two different nations in Afghanistan to try to separate and give voice to those religions who feel unheard of is completely essential, and this resolution would be left incomplete without such a solution.
Sorry, delegate, that won't be an order. Thank you, delegate. May the delegate just please yield the floor back to the chair. Thank you, delegate. Okay, delegates, are there any motions in the House? Yes, and there's a motion to divide the House, so yes, that will, I don't think I need to remind everyone what is divide the House. So we will be voting by all those in favor of this amendment. Please raise your placards high. Please raise them high. All those against? This amendment does not pass. Clapping is not in order. Okay, delegates, now that we Okay, delegates, so now that we have read the amendments, are there any motions in the House? Yes, delegate, that is in order. Delegate, that's not an order due to time constraints. If it were for me, we would debate until midnight, but we have to time finish. Yes, delegate, the motion to move into voting procedure, that will be in order, and yes, the House will be divided, so no abstaining in this voting. All of those in favor of this resolution, please raise your placards high. All of those against? This resolution does pass. This clapping is in order. Perfect, delegates. So now we will be entertaining the. Oh, wait. Yeah, the veto, right? There was veto, so may please all the P5 countries approach the chairs now. Please just keep silence and don't. It's not an unmoderated tap.
Delegates decorum, we are not an unmoderated caucus.
Okay, delegates, after talking to the veto power countries, the chairs have decided to not accept the veto just because the motives that gave weren't actually convincing to the chairs. Delegation of the United Kingdom, please control yourself. We do understand the points, we do understand the clause that you gave, and we do understand that you're just defending your delegation. But at the same time, other veto countries wish to pass a resolution, and their motives, specifically the motive by delegation of Russia, was very valid, and it makes sense for the ongoing of this debate. So the veto is rejected. So this resolution thus passes. Clapping is in order. We will be now moving to our last resolution of the day. That is the resolution submitted by the Republic of Afghanistan, Russia, and Syria, with co-submitters Mozambique, Iran, and Armenia. So may please one of the main submitters rise and come to the podium to read the resolution as a whole. We'll be sharing this resolution very shortly. Delegate may begin.
Clause 1 declares that Joe Biden needs to be put in jail for life due to counsel terrorist actions. Subclause A. These terrorist actions include subclause 1, murder, subclause 2, invasion of territory. Clause 2 demands that the veto power from the United States is immediately removed. Subclause A. If the United States refuses to do so, the Middle East will cut all ties with the United States in sectors including subclause 1, oil, subclause 2, minerals. Clause 3 requires the United States of America to declare that any country that condemns the main submitters of this religion shall be heavily sanctioned. Subclause A. Sanctions will depend on the extent of condemning, but can be up to. Subclause 1, $100 billion to the country condemned. Subclause B. The sanction will be decided by the Security Council. Clause 4 commands that money directed to the military of the United States shall be directed towards countries that they have affected in the past decade. Subclause A, 50% towards Afghanistan. Subclause B, 30% towards other countries affected by the United States of America, harmful and violent action. Clause 5 urges all countries to sign a treaty stating that they will not be able to intervene with any more internal affairs of Afghanistan. Subclause A, the treaty will be mediated by the United Nations. Subclause B, any country that refuses to sign will be judged by subclause 1, the International Court of Justice.
Perfect, thank you, Delegate. No, Delegate, that won't be an order. We still have 3 minutes. We will, yes, have a break in 3 minutes, Vessel. It's not a lot. Okay, thank you, Delegate. We will now entertain a speech in favor of this resolution. Are there any such in the House? Delegation of Afghanistan, you have been recognized.
The delegation of Russia is the floor. The chairs.
Thank you, Delegate. Forget. "30 seconds to 1 minute. 1 minute. You may begin.
Hello, delegates. The delegation of Afghanistan does not even know how to start this speech. It is completely devastated. The delegation is completely offended and once more oppressed by the same country that has oppressed Afghanistan for the past 2 decades. 20 years of complete suffering. How did the USA have the audacity to murder one of the country's most important leaders? Murder is a murder, delegates. There is no excuse for that. Delegates, it is time for this country, or should the delegate rephrase, this terrorist country, to be finally stopped. The delegation of Afghanistan will not accept this type of intervention anymore. It is time for the United Nations to start acting as the United Nation, not the let's exclude the nation. Afghanistan will not be ostracized anymore. We are tired, delegates, tired. Please, let's all vote in favor of this resolution.
Perfect, delegate.
Delegates, please lower your placards.
Delegates, we will now. Are there any motions in the House? Yes, delegate, that is in order. Session is adjourned.
Delegates, the press delegates will be around the room and they will be looking for some interviews. So if the press delegate call you, please go with them.
classroom, okay? Okay, delegates, please decorum fast because the committee has already started. Delegates, decorum that the committee has already started. We have already lost 2 minutes since starting time. We'll do roll call procedure. But starting by Afghanistan, Romania, Brazil, China, France, Iraq, Iran, Jordan, Lebanon, Pakistan, Mozambique, Pakistan, Pakistan, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, United Kingdom, and United States. Okay, so we will now would like to ask the other, the person that was actually giving the speech to come back because we will now be entertaining POIs for the speech. If I'm not wrong, was the speech? Was it in favor or against? Favor? Okay. So yeah, the POIs for the speech favor. Syria, Russia, and France, and that will be it. Delegation of Syria, you have been recognized. Microphone.
Doesn't the delegate agree that instead of focusing on further discussion of solely long-term actions and condemnation toward a political group, the resolution turns to producing immediate action that can stop the humanitarian crisis as fast as possible?
Absolutely, the delegation of Afghanistan said this resolution is perfect in trying to stop the crisis as fast as possible and condemning the US for its complete inadequate and crimes and actions.
Now the delegation of Russia.
Not agree. Afghan affirms the right to live and dignity.
Absolutely. This resolution prevents from all these countries from trying to interfere with the internal affairs of Afghanistan. In addition, it also condemns and puts a punishment on the US, who after such a war crime should no longer have such an influence in the United Nations.
Finally, the delegation of France.
So the delegation refers to the USA as murderers for one attack. However, should we not focus on the previous attacks done by the Taliban that qualifies the groups as murderers? Since 2021, over 1,000 civilians were killed and almost 3,000 wounded. They're showing that the government reigns on danger of their citizens and should not be trusted. Do the Taliban leaders also not have a similar punishments to Joe Biden according to the resolution, since they were both responsible for? Also, these killings by the Taliban were also civilian killings, since they weren't bombings in public places such as mosques, education centers, and markets.
fails to recognize the United States life of a monster, many others.
The delegation believes that the United States fails to recognize that it is not the leader of the world, cannot simply play with the other countries as little dolls or possums. The United States has no right to decide what is correct or killing who is fair and killing who is wrong. It is completely unethical and a war crime for the United States to admit in the middle of the United Nations that it has killed a political leader once again.
Thank you, delegate. You guys just. We will try to share the resolution on the screen if it's possible. Is it this one? The one submitted by, is it the Joe Biden? Yeah, exactly that. Okay, we will now entertain a speech against a delegation of Saudi Arabia. You have been recognized.
Delegates, this resolution, apart from being practical as this so-called will not help the Afghan civilians in the long run, the submitters did not take that the biggest oil producer in the world is actually Saudi Arabia. Therefore, is in fact cut all ties with the United States. Not demand this as stated in clause 2. Thank you.
Are there any such in the House? Delegation of Lebanon, followed by delegation of Armenia, followed by a delegation of Russia. That will be it. Delegation of Lebanon, you have been recognized.
Delegate not agree that it is ridiculous to make the entire Middle East suffer from many consequences because exportation of oil, one of its main sources of one of the main sources of its economy. Don't you agree that it's ridiculous to make all of the countries in the Middle East suffer because of an offense that Afghanistan felt?
Yes, delegate. The delegation of Saudi Arabia wholeheartedly agrees with that statement. Even though Saudi Arabia, for example, is trying to increase their economic GDP apart from oil negotiations, it is still a crucial part of our economy and many other Middle Eastern countries. Therefore, this resolution doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even tackle the problem from the roots. And taking away the power and economic sovereignty that all of the Middle Eastern nations have is ridiculous.
Does the delegate agree that this resolution also in a few clauses is way too harsh with their decisions, such as in clause 5, it urges all countries to sign a treaty stating that they will not be able to intervene with any more internal affairs of Afghanistan, and if any country refuses to sign this treaty, it will be judged by the International Court of Justice?
The delegation of Saudi Arabia partly agrees with that statement. Thank you. The delegation of Saudi Arabia believes that in case of a catastrophe or major civilian danger, there must be a way that other nations can help the Afghan civilians. However, it is up to Afghanistan if they will approve of this.
Taking into consideration other aspects of the resolution, not just the oil in Saudi Arabia, wouldn't the delegate agree that since, according to the USA, terrorism against the USA is defined as something that threatens the security of US nationals or the national security, such as national defense, foreign relations, or the economic interests of the United States, those rules should apply to acts of terrorism from the USA to other countries, and therefore the act that USA committed and the military and the government would be considered a terrorist group according to the USA, and therefore should be condemned appropriately and be held to the same standards that they hold to other countries.
Point of personal privilege. May the delegate please restate.
Yes, since under the United States Department of State, what is classified as terrorism goes under what has happened, and therefore Joe Biden by the USA would be considered honestly a terrorist at this point. Wouldn't the delegate agree that Joe Biden and the rest of the government should be held to the same standards that the USA holds other countries in the same matter, rather than being excluded from this because of having power or because of personal benefits or because they are a Western country?
No, delegate. The delegation does not agree with that statement. The delegation of Saudi Arabia believes that the United States was making a drastic but right decision in order to protect the civilians, again, civilians. And this Taliban leader was only making the situation worse for the innocent lives of the people.
Point of clarification, under the United States Department of State, what the US, considering what the USA defines terrorism towards the USA, what Joe Biden and what the government of the USA did would be considered an act of terrorism itself, according to the USA.
Point of inquiry, may I answer that?
We'll be extending the POIs by one. The first one to ask for POIs was the Kingdom of Jordan. Please pass the microphone to the Kingdom of Jordan.
Doesn't the delegate agree that the main submitters of this resolution have not heard of sovereignty of nations by stating that nations that decide to not sign this treaty will need to face trial in International Court of Justice? Also stating that Middle Eastern nations will need to cut ties with the United States if they do not comply with the resolution?
Yes, delegate. The delegation of Saudi Arabia wholeheartedly agrees with that statement. It is completely outrageous that such conclusions would be taken to countries that do not agree with this resolution. It is completely out of the UN values and does not follow democracy at all.
Thank you, delegate.
The delegation yields the floor back to the chairs.
Delegate?
The chairs will now be looking favorably for a motion for unmoderated caucus in order to write amendments. Yes, there will be an order, Saudi Arabia. Motion for 5 minutes of unmoderated caucus.
Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Ah.
Hi, what's your name? Where are you from? And what country are you representing?
I'm representing.
Could you tell us a bit more about the topic you're debating right now?
Right now, we're debating the Taliban.
Represent predominantly. How do you feel about the Muslim extremism within Afghanistan?
So within our position within this is very neutral because we're very concerned about the rise of extremists within Afghanistan and how that could influence potential rise of extremist political parties within our country. So although we have a neutral stance, we really value sovereignty of their own countries and we condemn any military intervention. So that's our position.
What do you think are the main divisions in this debate right now?
I think the main divisions is Russia together with Afghanistan, consequently most of the Middle East countries, and then the USA, France, mostly like NATO against Middle East.
Where does Syria stand on this?
Syria is currently standing with Afghanistan and the Middle East countries, although it has a partially neutral stance regarding the resolutions that were proposed within this council. We thought it would be better for our country and for the Middle East to side together with Afghanistan to ensure stability in the region.
What do you think is the hardest part of this debate?
I think the hardest part of this debate is ensuring that we're staying true to the positions of our country, at the same time valuing what's happening in Afghanistan and what definition. So what is the definition of terrorism? What is the definition of a political party? And how we can implement this on the debate.
What resolutions are you proposing for this issue? Both your resolutions and the resolutions of other people?
I think we had a crisis in the debate, so the resolution that passed, we had to reform it. But I think the most important part here is acknowledging what's happening a Syria position is acknowledging what's happening in Taliban, ensuring that the rights of these extremist parties are contained to Taliban, and ensuring that the people there are getting a lot of humanitarian aid, but also trying to collaborate with the Taliban to ensure there's at least another government present within the country to ensure this government is very organized and very stabilized.
And what would you say are the hardest negotiations? Is there anything that two sides absolutely refuse to agree on?
I think the hardest negotiations is with the USA and Afghanistan, allowing the Taliban to be a prominent political party or a prominent government within Afghanistan is something that the Middle East, but mostly Afghanistan, values a lot, and something that countries like the United States and France are totally against.
And what has been your favorite part of this debate?
I think my favorite part of this debate has been the crisis. I think it did stir up a lot of confusion with what sides should we stay true to. And I think my favorite part has just been how people are interpreting the positions of their own countries, how we can negotiate, be diplomatic within this to try to get as many people as possible to agree to a resolution.
And one more thing. Can you tell us more about this crisis? Who, where, what, why?
Allegedly, the USA killed the leader of the Taliban with a drone strike. So we had some questions that arose from that. Was it really the USA? Why did the USA do this? And do drone strike only kill one person? And this is something we got through in the debate, how drone strike is actually detrimental to a whole group of people and a lot of the population, not only the person it killed. And also working out, was this a rightful kill of the USA? The leader that they killed was still a person. Shouldn't this have been treated with a bit more of carefulness? And does the USA have any right to interfere in the political organizations of these countries?
Considering the debate you had here, what do you think gave you the most insight into the real world problem of the Taliban?
I think it gave me a lot of insight. I think with the USA, I know it's not that related to the Taliban, which was the original question, but I think it showed me how the USA has a lot of control over the world right now and how dangerous that can be in a state of a crisis, and how that control it can be very beneficial to some aspects. The USA brings a lot of economic prosperity, but how it can also be very detrimental. And this shows with their connection to the Taliban and how they had a very, very unethical approach to Afghanistan.
What would you say has been the highest point of tension in the committee so far? You've talked about how it's usually Middle East versus US. What would you say has been the toughest dispute?
I think the toughest dispute is actually happening right now. I think the resolution just proposed by Afghanistan and Syria is actually being submitting. But the solution proposes that the US has no veto power if it does not agree to the resolution itself, which is something completely drastic and very extremist, which is unfortunate for Syria, which is a country that's a bit more neutral. However, given what's happening in the debate, the USA's power has to be controlled. It has used smaller countries as puppets for many years to come, and this is something that they have tried to do with Syria as well. So it's something that, even though it's an extremist position, is something that we stood for very proudly.
Wow, making very radical changes to the UN Charter. Thank you so much for participating in this interview. It's been great finding out what's going on in the Security Council. Thank you very much. Hello, we're back with another interviewer. Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm George, the delegate of Iran,
What school are you from, George?
from the International School of Curitiba.
Thank you. So could you tell us a bit more about what's going on here right now?
So Iran just passed a bill where Afghanistan has been divided into two, effectively the West Democratic Republic of Afghanistan and the Eastern Republic of the Taliban's Caliphate.
What do you think has been the hardest part of this debate so far?
So the hardest part of this debate so far has been getting the USA to agree to things because they've been quite stringent on what they're voting on, especially with their veto power that has just been stripped by one of the resolutions proposed by Iran.
Do you support the resolution being debated right now?
The resolution currently being debated is open to amendments, therefore Iran is only going to support it after a few changes are made. However, primarily yes.
Could you specify those changes?
So the current resolution doesn't contemplate border control, and that border control is a topic in which Iran is pushing for. Therefore, if this resolution definitely contemplates border control, then Iran will be open to supporting it and voting in favor of it.
What do you think has been the highest point of tension in this debate?
So the highest point of tension so far has definitely been when a Taliban leader was murdered, and Iran feels deep sympathy to this because one of Iran's leaders was murdered by an American official. Therefore, Iran has higher degrees of sympathy towards this, and therefore empathize with his points and feels that this is definitely the highest degree of contention.
Insights would you say this debate has given you into real-world politics?
So definitely regarding religion being a dividing factor instead of a uniting factor, seeing as Iran is primarily composed of Shia Muslims and other countries in this committee are composed of Sunni Muslims. Therefore, religion is definitely being a roadblock and gives me insight in regard to how religion is a dividing agent instead of a binding agent.
Thank you so much for your time. Give it up to Iran, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye.
Hello, we're back with another interview. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Felipe. I'm from the Pan American School of Bahia, and I'm the representative of Afghanistan.
Wow, you're Afghanistan. how does it feel being the main person in this debate?
Well, obviously, it is great to be the main delegate in the main country in this whole issue. However, obviously, Afghanistan's position is not only a complex one, but a really hard one to argue for. However, we're doing our best efforts, and we're really happy with the results that we're having in BRAMUN.
What do you think of this resolution that is being amended right now?
Well, this resolution was written by us, so I personally believe this resolution is excellent in punishing the United States for killing the leader of the Taliban, and is really effective, although some colleagues of mine might not agree as much.
What would you say has been the hardest part of the debate so far?
Well, personally, for me, the hardest part of the debate is making speeches. That's the hardest part, and as well, obviously, trying to back such a tough and hard position.
What has been your favorite part of the debate?
My favorite part of the debate is always answering POIs because for me that's the most dynamic part of the debate and the most interesting one where anything can happen.
Thank you so much for your time. That's it from the delegate of Afghanistan.